What's up? The Grappling Hour is brought to you by Luda Gear, athletic support items created by grapplers for grapplers.
Can they throw out questions?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is your good neighborhood BJJ podcaster, Rafa Sparza. It is, 10:35 over here on Best Coast time. We have a hell of a show for you guys today. Now, here's what I want to tell you guys. So, maybe you've been like me, and when you peruse the internet, you see things that pique your interest. A lot of the times, it could be food. For me, it is, I know. But occasionally, it's a good jiu-jitsu move. Rarely, though, is it a jiu-jitsu tournament or event that you don't know much about, or one that is shrouded in mystery. And so, such is the case of this event that we're going to be talking about with today, because it just came out of nowhere. Our peers over at Grappling Rewind were like, what the hell is this? Other people have been saying, hey, look, that looks really interesting. They've got some really good guys involved in what appears like an 8-man tournament. If you look at their branding, it seems to say 13 matches, 13 submissions, 8 guys, 2 machetes, a partridge in a pear tree. So it gets to this point where people go, what is this? So why don't we start with this? We're going to start by showing you a trailer for the event that has piqued the interest of the grappling community. And I want you guys to get an idea of what we're going to talk about here today. Why don't we go ahead and cut to that right now? Okay, so if you're like me, you have questions. And naturally, the internet's a hard place to get questions from. So why don't we just get straight to the bottom of this? Why don't we reveal the person behind this, one of the creative forces behind it, a producer, a creator of it, and an all-around good guy. Let's figure out who's behind this. Let's look over. Oh, is it 10th Planet Black Belt, Phil Schwartz? How are you doing, sir?
I'm great, man. How are you doing today?
Very well. Thank you for asking. Phil, do people know that you're behind this?
I don't think anyone knows about Shugyo at all, so it's all a little new to the world, and hopefully they're all figuring out who's behind it. But I'm certainly not the star of the show. The star of the show are the athletes, the 8 men who put their names in the hat and signed up for this really special and dangerous and difficult challenge.
I gotta say a few things. When you say these 8 warriors on the promo material, the little commercial that we just saw right now, I see that for Nate Orchard, and, you know, he lives by that creed, so I understand that one. But then when you have Keith Krikorian smiling during his photo shoot, little graphic there, I just go, is there a separate word for Keith we should be using? Because, like, yeah, his jiu-jitsu is definitely warrior-esque. However, his personality for the promo material is like, warrior! You know? Yeah. So, let's do this. I want to get people to understand. So first of all, where does this name come from? Because I don't know that people understand what that word means, so I'd love for you to explain it and why you came up with that one specifically for this event.
Yeah, sure. So Shugyo, Shugyo in Japanese culture is essentially the quest of a samurai. And what was traditional was that samurais who grew to the tops of their clan, who became the most dangerous, the most feared, maybe the most respected, would take it on themselves to go traveling throughout the country to find more difficult training, more difficult sparring, perhaps more difficult duels. The most famous samurai that we know about who talks about this is Miyamoto Musashi. And so if you're familiar with Musashi, you hear the word Shugyo and Shugyosha thrown around there. And so for us, something I've thought about a lot is, wow, if you're the toughest guy at your gym, where do you go for a challenge? How do you raise it to the next level? How do you get that next bar when you're maybe one of the toughest guys in your school? And so the idea of kind of drawing this parallel between these ancient warriors who would wander the land looking to kill each other, and essentially what we see today in guys like all the guys we have in the tournament, Nathan Orchard, Ethan Krellinston, Keith Krikorian, Jordan Holy, a lot of these guys and more, these guys are competing every weekend if they get the chance, literally wandering the country trying to find other people to fight, people that are more difficult, people where they're going to basically sharpen their blade. So Shugyo just seemed like a really good fit for what our intentions were and for who we were looking for, because we were really looking for a certain kind of athlete with a certain kind of attitude.
I mean, you guys, you could have started off with a worse crew. Let's start with that. The folks that you did get are fairly good. I got to ask because I think it's clear, but I want to make sure people understand this is a sub-only, no time limit rule set, correct?
That's correct. So Shugyo is submission only, no time limit. And it was a really, can I talk about why we chose that?
No.
Yeah. So it was really important to us to go submission only, no time limit for a few reasons. One, for us, this is really about the athletes, and we really want the athletes to have the most pure jiu-jitsu experience as possible. And I'm not knocking other tournaments. Every tournament has their strength and their deficiencies. But the way I see it, tournaments break up into two different categories. There's tournaments that are hyper-focused on the athletes. And I would maybe it's going to surprise you, but to me, those are the tournaments like a really large Naga or a really large IBJJF or, a big show that comes to town and, they're not making their money in the stands. They're making their money by having as many competitors participate as possible, right? So they have a big event, many competitors. Then you have your other events, your EBIs, your Kasais, your Polarises. They're more focused on the fans. They're more focused on the spectators. They want as many spectators as possible. And for us, we really wanted to bridge the gap in Shugyo and try to conquer both of those mountains. So, of course, we want to have a format that's friendly and exciting for the fans, and I think that we've put that together. But more than that, we wanted to have a pure experience for these athletes where we were never going to say, hey, if you can't get the job done in 10 minutes, it's going to be overtime, or it's going to be a referee decision, or it's going to be points, or it's going to be anything that would take away from the actual experience of just two guys entering and one guy having to kill the other one. One guy has to make the other guy break, Yep. And we're giving you as much time as it takes. And we had matches in the tournament that were less than a minute long, and we had matches in the tournament that were over an hour long. So, styles make matches, right? And so we had some really exciting ones, and we also had some really difficult, long battles, and that was exactly what we wanted.
Good. I'll tell you this. I have a high appreciation for sub-only tournaments, no time limit. Honestly, I think it's one of the most difficult things to put on TV or internet television, if you would, but I have a thing that I like athletes to walk away with no sort of remorse. Like, I like the idea of finality. And I think people search for that. I think that's kind of one of the things that made sub-only become such an appealing movement for so many was like, well, I'm so bored with these points. There's no submission here. And isn't that what we're trying to get at the end of the day? So to me, I know that world. I love it. I've also commentated submission-only, no time limit tournaments. And I kid you not, I have brought horoscopes with me. I have brought Sudokus with me because I've literally said at some point I've got to keep it entertaining, and I don't know how long people are going to be invested for, especially if a match goes on to a certain amount of time. How is it that you were able to get around this and specifically make it a format that people would be interested to keep their attention for the entire time?
Sure. So a couple things. So one, Shugyo happened in secret. There was no live audience. There was no live spectators. There was no live stream. All of the athletes showed up like professionals. They showed up to basically an empty warehouse as far as they were concerned, and they did their work. They signed documents agreeing not to talk to anybody about it until now. And so they came, they fought, and then they left, and it felt very Mortal Kombat to me, like very much like we show up on this island and we see who's the toughest, and then we go home, and we don't really need to talk about it. And there was no live stream, and there were no live spectators, and there's no one really to like leak out what actually happened. So we filmed all of the content on 3 high definition cameras that were really, really high level cameras. And we had a film crew, basically. Those are the only people that were in the building. And so what we're going to do in all the episodes, which are dropping, the first episode drops August 12th, Monday, August 12th, on our website, theshugyo.com. And in that first episode, what you're going to see is that we've highlighted the matches down to the most exciting content. So we've not boiled, we've not really we haven't taken the soul out of the match. We want the match to have a soul. We want the match to have a feeling and a battle, and the aspect of battle there. It's not we don't want the match to be, a chaotic set of clips where you don't really know what happened. Like, there's absolutely a story of every match, but we've highlighted the best part of that story, the most exciting part of that story. And so in every episode, you're going to see the match play out in its edited form, which is going to be about maybe like 2 minutes long, depending on the length of the match itself. And then we're going to go into personally, my favorite part of every episode is what I call the DVD commentary, which is basically after every single fight, we've watched the fight in the edited form, and then we're going to go back and we're going to rewatch the fight, but this time the athletes who were in the battle are going to talk us through the fight. So if we have a fight between 2 athletes, as soon as the fight's over and we see who the winner is, we jump into the interview booth and we're going to watch the fight again with the athletes, and the athletes are going to walk us through the most important turning points of the match, and they're going to tell us, what's significant, why it matters, and how they felt about it. And so that really rounds out the experience of watching the match, because a lot of times you have your own insights into watching a match, but it's really cool to hear the athletes give you their perspective and their insights as well. And then every episode that drops as additional bonus content for the real jiu-jitsu nerds out there, we're going to release the full unedited matches as well. So if a match is an hour long, we're going to release an hour-long match, and people can break it down and study it as much as they want.
Okay, I've got thoughts and feelings here.
Cool.
Okay, first of all, are they watching the matches together or individually? Like, are we doing like a talking confessional where it's just them by themselves, or is it the 2 of them watch it together?
It's individual.
Okay. I was about to say, I was like, you're a little close to one of my ideas, so you can go away. I'll tell you this. This is something I'm going to end up doing. Maybe it's something we can partner on later. But one of the things I've always been interested in, and one of the things I think I'll end up doing on Grappling Hour at some point, is I want to actually have a beer with both of the competitors after they compete. And I would love to get them to talk with each other, because I think there's a lot that gets said about, having good rivalries. But I think at its core, most of these guys are pretty friendly with each other after they try to kill each other. And so it's been one of my ideas is to bring them in the same thing together and create it as more of a social event. What you're describing is more an analysis, especially a self-analysis. And I just wondered, I was like, how much are they willing to reveal when they're both in the room together, as opposed to what they're going to reveal individually? I feel like individually they're going to give you way more. So I'm a huge fan of that for your format. I think that will work very, very well.
Yeah, and there are some there are some really emotional moments of the tournament. And I think that one of the things that was most interesting to me, has been most interesting to me in this process, is that, this is documentary format, right? Like, it's not scripted. This is not reality TV, right? We didn't tell them what to say or how to act. So this is absolutely a documentary format. And in some ways, me and my partner Bam, the director and a huge influence in the production, he and I, we're telling a story here, and it's almost we're also learning the story as we're telling the story, because all we can do is tell the story that these athletes came and participated in, and so it's really interesting in the documentary format because we don't necessarily know what the story is going to be, and so we're crafting the story out of the words and the actions of all these athletes, and it's coming together in a really interesting way. And so I just want to say, there's a couple of there are some really big upsets in this tournament. I think there's some really crazy things that happen that are maybe unexpected, and there are some really human moments too, and so the tagline that we've been going with for Shugyo is face your demons, face your demons. And I think that, to me, that really bottles up a lot of the feeling of no time limit, because there is nothing to save you in a no time limit match. There's no points, there's no referee, there's no way to edge it out, there's no way to appear more aggressive and then get the judges to side with you. There's none of that. So as soon as you step on the mat and you touch that opponent and you feel what they're made of, you and they are trying to break each other. And so in trying to break each other, well, you have to fight your own demons. You have to search your own demons. If you have that break in you, if you want to quit in you, then that's what's going to come out. That's what's going to be shown. So you have to fight yourself. And I think that specifically in the tournament, but also in the post-fight interviews, we really were able to capture and catch up with these athletes. And man, you lost that match. Why did you lose that match? Why did you break? How did this happen? And really able to dive into that and kind of understand that we are all human, even though sometimes we see these guys as super athletes that are really, really dangerous.
You bring up several good points, but I have so many questions. The secrecy of it all. It makes me just sit here and think, as a promoter myself, I don't know how you don't worry every night that some of this gets out. So when you were coming up with the idea, at what point did you say, I want to do this and I have to do it in secret? And more importantly, was there a fear that some of it would get out?
So I think that, I agree. It's scary, and I've had a lot of experiences, personal experiences and learning experiences, where I've just realized that fear is not a great emotion to build your decisions off of, So I try not to do too much fear-based thinking. So personally, I felt like the event had to be secretive. It had to be a secret event. I think that if we held the tournament, this goes back to kind of one of my pet peeves with both formats of tournaments, is that one of the problems with tournaments is that they happen and then they're over. It's just done. And that really doesn't give maximum exposure to the athletes, especially the athletes that don't place first. Because, if you see the IBJJF Worlds happen and you see Keenan Cornelius won another world championship, you never hear the story of that guy that placed third. And how hard did he work? And what did he go through? How about the guy that placed second? And that sucks for those guys, because we never hear their stories. We never really learn about them. And it also can suck for the sponsors, because if you're a sponsor of an event like this, whether it's a live stream or whatever, I like to use the analogy of a football game. A football game happens you might go back and watch the replay on SportsCenter. You'll never go back and watch the full 3-hour game. Like, no one's going to sit down and watch a 3-hour game with all the commercials in it. You know what I mean? So anyone that threw a commercial up on that game, or a flyer or a banner on the field, like, that was single use only, you know? Mm-hmm. So one of our dreams in the event was to create something that was going to live and be entertaining and be valuable forever, just going to be on the internet forever. And that's probably another important thing to mention right now, because our goal is to make this as accessible and valuable to as many people as possible. We are releasing the entire Shugyo show, which is 7 episodes plus bonus content. It's all going to be on YouTube and Instagram for free, 100% free. No paywall, no price, no $1, no $2, none of that. So it's 100% for free on YouTube. And I felt like, given all the goals we had to make the maximum amount of exposure for the athletes, to make the maximum amount of exposure for the sponsors, I just felt like we had to do something that was going to stand the test of time, hopefully. And the only way to do that was to keep it, you know, kind of shrouded in mystery and suspense. And so I'm really proud and pleased with all the athletes we've worked with. And I think everyone's doing a really great job keeping the secret and keeping the suspense, you know. And at the same time, you know, I mean, if details start to leak out, I think it's also kind of okay, because this footage doesn't exist anywhere. You know, there's nowhere to look it up. There's nowhere to go find it. You can't look it up on YouTube. You can't look it up on Wikipedia yet. So even if you heard, oh my God, this happened, this match happened, or this upset happened, or this submission happened, holy shit. Stay tuned, because it's coming, you know, it's coming. We're going to drop it all on you.
I've told people this, where as a writer, I have a different approach to, like, watching a movie. And, you know, I look up spoilers. Like, listen, kids, I got a lot of things to do. Like, I don't got time for it. So when I've watched it, you know, I would read the spoilers for, like, a Star Wars movie. And I'd be like, I'm still going to see it. And people would say, well, why? Didn't it spoil it for you? And I was like, no, it's all about the craft. So to me, even if I know who won a match, I still want to see how they did it. And I think that's the hidden appeal of a lot of jiu-jitsu, is, especially for an educational sport aspect of it, is you might hear someone won, but more often than not, you want to see how they did it and how the magic trick was performed. One thing I want to pass on to you, and I mean this as a compliment, but there was definitely an era where Metamoris was getting maybe as close to trying to make this happen, because they were trying to do that version of The Ultimate Fighter. And there was definitely a moment where they did it a little bit in secret, and they were trying to release it on their own sort of Netflix version of a subscription paywall that didn't make any sense yet. But it's almost like you inverted that model and said, how about we give it to you for free? We do the same amount of secrecy, but yet we still put the same focus on the fighters. Because I thought that was the most annoying part of what they were doing, was you could see it was ripe for, it's not ready yet. You know, like that business model that they're trying to put together, trying to make people pay to see the beginnings of The Ultimate Fighter. It doesn't make sense yet. But I like the idea of building it up and saying, like, here it is, watch what you will. The one thing I will pass on, as somebody with a little bit of production experience, I would do an embargo on those full matches. I would at least put a protection of a week, because I would probably suggest that the anticipation of watching the full match needs to build after a certain amount of time. And I feel like people were going to want to watch the event, and you get them and you educate them on that, and you have a week's worth of building and playing off that. Because with the secrecy, you basically have to put something out, and then you have to wait for it to go out to have that content. But if you have already premiered the episode, people have that week to watch it, and then you say, now we're going to release the full match. I think it separates the two into something different. Some people do it as far as a month out in advance or something like that, but I would highly consider an embargo system, because I bet you people are going to watch when they can see the full stream if they subscribe.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, I want people to engage with the content in the best way for them, you know? And so, like, I've thought about this, and a friend and a mentor of mine, Chris Martinez, who owns Phalanx. He and I were talking, and he used the word micro content, and I said exactly. Like, there's so much great micro content that can't make its way into the full episode just for the editing reasons, But I mean, we have really in-depth episodes, in-depth interviews with these guys, and I would love to release longer format interviews. I would love to release, different edits of the fights. And so just allow people, because, there's a certain amount of people that want to digest something just like really quickly on Instagram. And then there's other people that want to watch the full episode. And then there's other people that want to really like break it down and study it. And it's interesting to me too, demographically, because every person that I've talked to that's like purple belt and higher has like, the first thing they said was, I got to watch the full match. Like, I want to study this. I want to study this, And I think that's really great. And I think that'll be really interesting to see kind of like how, how the views break out between like the shortest available content, the medium content, and the long content. I think the embargo is a great idea. I think we definitely just want to make sure that people can get the most out of the content, whatever that means to them.
I agree. I just, speaking from somebody who used to work for a network, it's one of those things where you talk about micro content, and I feel like one of the strategies I've seen from a lot of different shows that have expanded what it is. So it's more so, to me, it's like repurposing your content. So it's more so like, you shot it, you shouldn't have to worry about making 20 new things. You should focus on making the most out of what it is you got from it. And so for me, I'm thinking like, yeah, dude, if you told me like I watched that 5-minute version of that match, and then I got to sit there and I go, how long was the rest of the match? And you're like, actually, it was 25 minutes. And you go, well, when does that come out? And people go, well, it'll come out next week. Make sure you tune back in on this date at this time. And as long as you're consistent, I think people will stay the route with you. But I feel like giving it to them right away, some people may bypass just watching the narrative. And I think the narrative build and the watch build are two different experiences. I feel like the narrative build is more about the fighters, and I feel like the match build is all about the match. And so I feel like if you create them as separate experiences, it's stuff that I've seen major networks and television shows use to great extent. And for me, I'm a huge person about the athlete experience, because, as I'm sure you know, when we bring people on like this, half the time it's like, tell me about you, brand yourself out differently, and make sure that you know that this is an opportunity that you may not get after a match, to talk and tell people not just what you did, but like why you're interesting and what makes you different than everybody else. So those are things that I like to pass on. Let me ask this. When did you know you were going to create this? Because this didn't just come out of thin air. As much as it is to us, I'm pretty sure you've been putting in some time with it. So when did this idea come about, and how did it come about?
Oh, man. It's been brewing for a long time. I have to give, I would probably say that the seed was probably planted a long time ago when I saw Lloyd Irvin's, brown belt Kumite, which I think some people still talk about, Mm-hmm. And the brown belt Kumite, there were some really big names in that tournament that ended up becoming even bigger names. Keenan Cornelius, Gary Tonin, I think Victor Silverio, I think Sean Roberts. There's a lot of really good guys there that are now really high respected brown belts, or black belts rather. That started in that tournament, maybe where that was their introduction to the world. And like you were saying, we got an opportunity to kind of learn a little bit more about them. Who are they as people? What is their personality like? What are they like behind the scenes? What are they like off camera? What are they like off the mat? How do they feel about winning? How do they feel about losing? How do they handle these challenges of being an athlete? And that always rang true to me as one of the more entertaining and not just watchable but rewatchable pieces of jiu-jitsu content online. Like I've watched it so many times. So I want to give those guys a shout out for kind of sparking that love of the idea of no time limit for me. But this event came around probably a little over a year ago, maybe right around a year ago. But I was competing. I was thinking about this event already, and I was thinking about how we could do it in our format. And I was thinking about problems with other types of tournaments and why they were somehow deficient, whether they were leaving the fans behind or leaving the athletes behind or leaving the sponsors behind. And I just wanted to like get rid of all of that, you know. And I was at a tournament. I was competing at Zapatero, and I love those guys. I love Josh LeDuc. I love the opportunity to compete. But you know, it probably with airfare, with travel, with hotel, with tournament buy-in, with all of that, you know, it probably cost me $1,000 to fly from Oregon to Florida to compete in that event. And, you know, I went out, I won my first match, I lost my second match. It was, you know, typical jiu-jitsu experience. It was a good experience. It was a learning experience. I think Keith won that division. And Jordan Holy was also in that bracket. Josh Bacalao was also in that bracket. Those are all Shugyo vets. And so I was sitting backstage with Josh, and Josh and I were talking about EBI overtime and different rules formats. And we were just really talking about, you know, how cool would it be if we could get these same high-level guys, like guys this level, elite guys, to get together and to do something no time limit. Because not everybody wants to do no time limit, you know. And for Shugyo, we actually had some really other big names that were signed up for Shugyo that had to pull out due to injuries, which is a bummer. But at the end of the day,
I don't know why you just told us that, because it's such in secrecy that you could have literally gotten away with it and we wouldn't have known. You could have been like, "Oh, it was always 8. What are you talking about?"
No. It was always 8. It was always 8.
Got it.
But there were 3 guys. I had to replace 3 guys. So that just kind of shows you an insight into tournament promotion. You know, if you try to run an 8-man bracket and you have to replace 3 of the 8 guys.
See, I can't help. I've done nothing but done promotional things where my biggest nightmare as a performer and producer is always, "Are you showing up?" So I can't tell you how many nightmares I've had of. And this is not a normal person's nightmare, but it's a producer nightmare where you wake up and you go, "It was just a dream. They didn't cancel. Okay, cool." Yeah. Then you wake up into a text and somebody cancels and you're like, "Ah!" It's the whole Thriller thing all over again. The thing for me, though, is the reason why I ask that is just because you get to this moment where when you are putting these events together and you almost, in putting together an 8-man bracket, when I used to work at the Tonight Show, you had to bring an audience of about 400 each day to come see a show. And our executives didn't like it if it wasn't filled. So in order to get 400 people, you had to basically over-invite by 10%, which meant that 40 people probably aren't going to see the show. And that's going to suck for them. But we would work our way around it. So one of the things I found for promoting for athletes when you put together these events is you may sign up 8 people, but you really better have 12.
Right. I agree. I learned that now. Yeah, there's a lot of learning curves here. But, you know, I mean, when we started to set out on this idea, you know, I knew that not everybody was going to be down to compete in something like this. Like, I knew that there were a lot of guys out there that were going to want to protect their competitive record, or they were going to, you know, they wouldn't compete if it wasn't their rule set, you know. And I think there's a lot of athletes out there that really are champions of their rule set, and I think that's great. You know, I mean, I think that every jiu-jitsu rule set is a slightly different game. Like, I think that EBI is a different game than IBJJF, and I think IBJJF is a different game than ADCC. You know, and I'm still kind of like floating on a cloud right now because we actually had a seminar this weekend at my school with Marcelo Garcia. And we were hanging out with Marcelo Garcia all weekend, and that's just like its own jiu-jitsu drug. But something that Marcelo was talking about is just like how different ADCC is from IBJJF, because in ADCC, the referees really don't just instantly give you the points. Like, you really have to establish the position, you really have to establish the pass in order to get the points. So every different tournament format has a different style of play, and there's a different style of athlete that has prepared themselves for that style of play. And so to going out and trying to find guys who were elite and who were, aggressive and exciting, but also were down for this style of play, that was a challenge on the production side for sure.
Sure.
But I think we got 8 really awesome competitors who really were willing to go out there and die on their shield essentially.
Yeah, I mean, part of the reason additionally I tend to like it, not just for finality, but I love seeing the mental toughness that you have to do this event. Credit to the kid, but I want to say about 8 months ago or so, I was talking with Keith, and I definitely remember him being like, "Oh man, I would love to be in a submission only, no time limit. That would be cool." Because I told him, I'm like, "Yeah, I'm always kicking around ideas." And then he mentioned that, and I thought about it, and I was like, "How have you never been in one?" You know what I mean? Like, maybe you've had really varied experiences, but it just seemed to me where I was like, there aren't that many tournaments that do that. There's only a handful of people who are willing to produce and make those shows because you just don't know how long they're going to be. So that was something that when I saw you got him, I said, that's good. He will be one of those guys who produces for you. So that's good.
Yeah, I mean, Keith is a really awesome dude. Here, one second.
Granted, he's not that awesome because on here he was really pissed that we didn't start the show fast enough for him to get a juice box. So he was complaining about it on the chat, and I've just told him, I've responded to him in the chat and told him to shut face, and I stand by that.
I love Keith, but originally I had invited PJ Barch to the event, and he hurt his knee at ADCC Trials, and so Keith actually replaced PJ, and I thought that Keith is an incredible athlete, and he's one of the Keith I think is one of those guys that I think was great for the event, because a lot of people maybe who know Keith or look at Keith might think like, well, yeah, he's tough and he's good, but he's really only good at EBI format, and they might try and use that to take something away from Keith, and I think that they don't actually know the real Keith,
Yeah.
They know the real athlete if you think that. But again, that's exactly the kind of critique that we're looking to get rid of. We want people to go out there and see how tough these guys are, how tough these battles are, and at the end of the day, what it takes mentally and physically to get through this, whether you're a winner or a loser.
Yeah. Mike John just put in the comment section, "Be nice to Keith," and I refuse. That's not in my contract. I don't have to.
We love Keith.
He's all right. When did you film this?
So I'm I don't know if you know have you ever heard of the Enneagram personality test? You ever heard of that?
No.
Okay. Well, it's a personality test. There's 9 different types of personalities, and my type is type 7. So the type 7s, they're the never stop moving type, and that's me. So I literally as soon as one project is over, I take a breath, and then I'm like, okay, cool, when's the next project starting? I need something to be firing on. And so we set up we run a no-gi camp called No-Gi Summit, and that was the event that we just had with Marcelo Garcia in Portland, Oregon, and then we also are now running no-gi summits in Thailand every year. Nice. So we run one in April in Thailand, and that's been really fun. So pretty much for 3 weeks in April, I was in Thailand with Jeremiah Vance and Ben Eddy and Frank Barca and a bunch of cool people. And then as soon as we got back from Thailand in May, we filmed the event. So I pretty much went straight from vacation, teaching, training, traveling, and then we got back, we landed, and it was straight into pre-production, production. We filmed everything on over a weekend. So we had the weigh-ins were Friday. The initial phase of the matches, 12 matches, were on Saturday, and then the finals were on Sunday.
Okay, so they got a day to rest and kind of recruit before the final then.
Yeah, we don't want, I mean, this is an endurance competition. We didn't want people to be like so worn out. So we tried to make sure that they had a lot of time in between. I don't think that we've actually talked about the rules format, but if you want to talk about that real quick, that will maybe make it clearer for people.
Yeah, I mean, that's usually supposed to be a question that I ask, but it's nice when the individual who's being interviewed just goes, "That's really good, Raph. Also, I'd like to go ahead and now bring up what I would like to talk about." I was like, "Yeah, do whatever you want, dude."
Let's start over. Do it. You asked the question.
No, but again, I guess just out of the blue, if I'm asking questions, what is the rule format, and why is it unique, and why are you being to the point where you want to bring it up? Because you would just think if it's just sub limit, sub only, no time limit, there would just be very, very basic rules. But what are the rules?
The rules are very basic. The thing I wanted to bring up is that we split the athletes into 2 4-man groups. Mm-hmm. Somewhat similar to Kasai. And the athletes competed round robin inside of their group. And then the athletes with the best scores at the end of that, the most submissions, they went on to the finals. So there were 2 brackets, 2 groups. And the reason why I'm bringing it up is because I really like the format that, this is another thing that I wanted to have for the athletes, which is that even though this is a submission only, no time limit tournament, there is still a round 1, round robin aspect of it. So every athlete on day 1 was guaranteed 3 matches. Mm-hmm. Every athlete went into Saturday knowing that whether they win or lose, they're going to have 3 matches. They have to have 3 matches. And so that was something that was a really important part of the tournament to us, was that, we didn't want anybody to have a one and done experience. We didn't want someone to go out there. That's something you hear athletes say a lot, is my first match is always my hardest match. I always feel worst the first match, and then from there I kind of shake it off and I get into my groove. So we really wanted everyone to know, hey, look, you have 3 matches out here to go out and get it done. And in the event of a tie on points, like let's say there's a 1 bracket and there's 2 guys and they each tapped 2 people and then they got tapped 1 time. So they each have 2 points, but they lost 1 match. If that was the case, then the athlete with the fastest submissions proceeds, right? So there's no way to game this. There's no way to say like, well, my first match was like, the only way to game it is to say like, well, my first match I won in 20 minutes. That was too long. Now I need to go out there and get it done like really quickly, Or you could just win all your matches. That's a nice way to game the system, Just tap everybody. But there was no way to say, oh, well, I'm just going to stall this time, or I'm going to wait, or I'm going to somehow try and like build up a certain amount of time. Like, no, it doesn't work that way. It's just whoever has the most points. And if there's a tie, it's whoever's tapped faster.
Yeah, and it also takes out the subjectivity of it. So it's not just gaming the system for the athletes, but it's also assuring them, like, it's all on you.
And that goes back to facing your demons, because it's like this is about putting you face to face with that thing that scares you, that thing that wants to break in you, whether it's your cardio, whether it's your mentality, whether it's your preparation, whether it's your skills, whatever it is, like, we want to see that come out. We want to fight until that comes out,
I love that. I love that so much. Especially considering, I think we've all had those roles that are marathon roles where you go through the time limit, the buzzers, and you're just like, what am I going to do from here? You're in bad situations, but it builds a certain kind of resolve, and I have such a high appreciation for that and what it does. I want to go over some basics because people may not know, we're talking about this theoretical thing. It exists somewhere, and they have the opportunity to see it. And I've been told by you, and I want to make sure people understand this, it will premiere on August 12th, and it's going to be on your YouTube channel, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So you can access our YouTube channel either by going to our Instagram, Shugyo Invitational, SHUGYO, Shugyo, and you can find our YouTube channel, you can find our Instagram page, but if you really just want to find it super easy, everything is posted up on theshugyo.com. And so that's our website. That's the most easy to find.
And I got to ask this because this is intriguing. If you go to that website, there seems to be a place where you can fill out a form, which begs the question, what happens next? Why would I fill out a form if I'm an athlete? It seems as if you guys are already planning for the future. And here's what I need you to be able to tell me in succinct terms, because I know things about putting on events, and I know how athletes are. They literally see one thing, and I'm pretty sure you've already gotten notes being like, yo, dog, can I get in on this? And it's like, we already filmed it, dude. So what is the plan?
John Palestine was the first person to message and say, hey, do you need someone to get in on this? And I was like, bro, I wish, dude.
Because I have a high appreciation for athletes as well who basically pitch themselves. And I know that one of the things that happens is you get used to certain names that always get mentioned. And I feel like sometimes athletes think, what about me? What about me? What about me? And so I know that a lot of them look for those opportunities. This seems like a great opportunity. So I'd love to tell people what it is you're looking for. And I want them to understand that, because not only does it help them to better understand what they need to do or the kind of attributes that make them that, but more importantly, to know that there are opportunities for them if they're willing to be that guy. And I would like them to kind of understand better. Or women. I don't know if you've got a female division in the future, but I want to make sure that we're very clear to those individuals who see that form and what you're looking for.
Yeah. I mean, we put the form on the website just so that people could contact us and just say, anything, I've had a lot of people reach out and say, hey, when does this come out? Where can I watch it? And I've had other people come out and quite like you said, hey, I this is what I weigh and this is my record, and I'd really love to get in on something like this. And I think that's awesome, man. I mean, I think that's what we want. Again, this is for the athletes, and we have a lot of ideas about future shows and how we want to do it. We're hoping that this first show takes off and that becomes a platform that allows us to do more stuff like this, because it's certainly, it's expensive to put on these shows. It's not cheap, and just the fundraising phase for me was really difficult, in just, really needing to articulate, all of the goals and the mission and how this tournament was going to be different than everything else on the internet, and why this wasn't just another invitational that was going to disappear the weekend after it happens. And so I can tell you a couple things. I can tell you that one thing that I've heard a lot of interest in that I think would be cool, maybe not next but cool, is to do a 145 division, because a lot of the guys that were in this division can actually make 145. So there are some guys, Keith, Ethan Krellinston. There are some guys that this was 155 day before. So there are some guys that can make 145 day before. So that would kind of be fun to have some Shugyo vets come back, and also, you can imagine all the amazing grapplers at 145 that might want to get in on something like this, and that could be so exciting. And I would love to do that. I'm not going to throw any names out there, but there's some really, really fire grapplers at 145 that we can speculate on, who might be really exciting to see in this format. But in my head and in my heart, if we do get to do another event, if we are able to do another event, the next event I want to do is women 135 and below. I think that the women's division 135 and below, like those ladies that you watch, Bia Mesquita and Patty Fontes and all the women that we see, battling it out, Maya Bastos at ADCC. Like I personally, as a grappling fan, I would love to hear their story, and I would love to see them fight no time limit, submission only in this format. So my dream, if we could do Shugyo 2, would maybe be to do a ladies division and see how fire that is.
I'm just saying, that's great to know. It's a very good preview, and I think it's all the more reason to get behind one of these events is because I'm a huge fan of this. I hate when grapplers tell me they don't have opportunities. Like, there's nothing more that I don't have a certain amount of patience for, which is just like, well, okay, you have to then be willing to do these things or do that. And it's part of the reason why I got into the actual practice of putting on events, and I've partnered with people, and I've done things, and I've made suggestions whenever people are putting together tournaments, because I know that it sucks sometimes when you're the athlete and you want to get that chance to show what you're good at. It's also part of the reason why sometimes when guys are rolling with me, they are auditioning, and they freely admit that. They're like, I just wanted to let you know I'm good. I was like, I'm aware. I watch what you do, But I'm very, very, very much sympathetic to their cause. I just tell them, like, you have to be proactive about it too. As an athlete, you just can't sit back on your ass and do that. So if I were to hear that and I was an athlete, I would not only be watching your event, but sharing it to help build that momentum so that there could be a second opportunity. Because, again, you get somebody like Keith who told me, I'm pretty sure if the timeline works out right, way before you even put together the event, he really wanted a submission, no time limit kind of match, and then he got his wish because his resume warranted it. And again, he was filling in for PJ, but 10th Planet is not short on people to replace somebody at a drop's notice. So I guess that's the idea. It's very nice that I saw, once I looked at your page though, I know it was a little open statement where it didn't say like, hey, we're looking for athletes, but I saw that form and I was like, they're going to get a lot of athletes contacting them. I know that's blank submission form. Well,
trust me, I'm gonna be taking all of those really seriously, and again, we hope that people are as into this idea and the production as we are. I can tell you that the day after we finished shooting, we went into the editing room, and we've been editing ever since then, and it's my day job, if I'm not coaching at the gym, I'm in the editing room, and so just trying to make sure that everything and everyone is represented to the best of our abilities is a task, but again, like that's our commitment to the athletes that participate in this, is that this is your story. And I really don't care if you went out and lost every single match you had in the tournament. We're still blowing you up. We're still making you look good. We're still showing your highlights. We're still telling you your story. Because you're still a badass. Like, you can't, like, everyone, if you're sitting on the couch and you're like, man, that guy lost his matches, it's like, fuck you. You didn't even compete, like, you know how much it takes to stand up and say, hey, I'm going to go, do a no time limit match, not one, but up to 4 if I make it to the finals, it's like, damn, that's a lot. That's brave, that's tough. I didn't sign up for this tournament. You know what I mean? I'm just the promoter, I'm just the promoter. I just want to give these savages an outlet, So I really hope that we get the funding and we get the push to do more. And again, I think that women's grappling has just taken off, and I think that's awesome. And I honestly, like, sometimes I watch like, if you watch men's soccer, it's very physical, you know what I mean? It's very physical. It's about bullying, and power, and then you watch women's soccer and it's about finesse and technique. And of course there's like a lot of heart in it, and there's a lot of like intense situations, but I think we see the same thing in women's grappling too. Like, there's so much style and finesse and technique in women's grappling, and women are so intense when they compete that I just think that jumping off of the Shugyo 1, if we went Shugyo 2 and did the ladies division, it would just be so exciting to watch. So I would love to make that happen, and I hope that our female followers are equally interested in that. And Raph, would you like to ask me about the prizes and the prize payouts for the event?
Like, I don't need... Listen, dude, you should have just bought an infomercial spot on my fucking show and be like, well, that's so great that you bring up this female competitors, Raph, but also, what about these prizes?
Yeah, what about these prizes we hear about?
Yeah, because I did see They get a nice little trophy that you guys put together, very unique, artfully crafted. Where'd you get that from?
The internet.
Oh, you just sifted one off the internet.
No, we bought a really cool statue of a samurai with his sword, like about to kill somebody, and then we had some of our artists modify it and put it on a really nice piece of wood and put a plaque on it. So we did it up. We made a nice little trophy for the winner.
Okay. But then there's obviously a prize of some sort of cash.
There's not just one. There's actually 3 cash prizes, which we haven't actually advertised this. So this is a little bit of a
exclusive. Let me get
drop.
my air horns real quick. Bah, bah, bah. Go ahead.
So 2 things. One, going back to my experience with competing all across the world, traveling, paying for it. I mean, again, like you have a typical tournament now around. You might have anywhere from a $1,500 to a $5,000 grand prize, but all those athletes have to pay to get in. All those athletes have to travel to get there. So the first thing that we did was, and this was difficult for me on the fundraising side, but I was really committed to it. We provided every athlete $400 in travel money just to get to the event. So as soon as the athletes showed up at the event, they got $400 in travel money. That didn't cover 100% of the expenses, but it's something to go to help these guys, realize that they're professionals and that this is a professional event. I really have a problem with events that don't pay second place, because I feel like the guy that made it to the finals, he's as much of a story of the event as the guy that wins, and like I'm also the king of second place. Like I feel like I've won. Like I feel like that was like for me, I was like, man, like we need to pay second place. That guy works hard, So as the king of second place, yeah. So our first place payout was $5,000. Our second place payout was $1,500, and we also gave $1,000 to the fastest submission.
Nice.
So, of the 8 athletes, everybody got $400 in travel money, and then 3 of the 8 athletes were paid for fastest submission, first place, and second place. So just trying to kind of like spread the love out as much as possible. And again, I mean, like that means that like in terms of our budget goes, like that's over $10,000 that went straight to the athletes, straight to the athletes, And so I've probably had to put in like $4,000 or $5,000 of my own money just to cover like post-production expenses and like all the other things that go into making this, because there's so many expenses you don't even think about. And like I don't even care, because for me this is just a labor of love. Like this is it's art. This is art to me. This is an art project. And I think like what you were saying earlier about Metamoris, like I think that there's a real problem when people try to commercialize something right away, and we should be more focused on doing things because they're cool and they're beautiful, and they're exciting, and maybe the commercialization happens later, like, I mean, like, yeah, we're selling these hats, but like, we're not gonna make all our money back in hats. Like, yeah. We're selling hats because we want to make a cool hat. You know what I mean? Like, so, well, I think we're more focused on like doing things because they're cool, and they're exciting and they're right, and less on like just like how are we going to make our money back, which I know is like a terrible business model. But
I mean, Phil, I got to be honest with you, man. And again, speaking the promoter side of me to you, is you are addressing so many of the things that has really, stopped me dead in my tracks from doing another event, because in my own conscience, as much as I want to do another event and put on things with people, those are the things that keep me up at night, is being like, all right, well, I think it's fair to pay people for travel. I think it's fair to pay for a second place. I think it's fair to make incentives for people who are doing badassery for, their art as well. So you really, at your core, I feel that most promoters, not all, we've seen some shitty ones, but at their heart of it, they want to reward these things. We just don't always have the budget. And so it's always a matter of having to do that. So just hearing you describe that, I hope you understand it is so nice to hear, as somebody who has put together events, someone who is trying to make all of those things happen. So it is so great because there are so many days when you go to your jobs, whatever it may be, or I know that I have, where I was like, I mean, if I take out this much of my own money and I gave them this, was that what it's going to take to make it happen? Whereas, you know, you don't have that at the NBA. At the NBA, they go like, Pepsi brings you this slam dunk, and you're like, dope. Can Pepsi just pay for, like, you know, catering? That'd be cool. But one of the things that I think people may not even understand what the quality that you guys are bringing is, if you look at the quality of that camera and the quality of the video that you guys put out there, that's not a cheap camera. That's not a cheap editing amount of time that you guys have to put in. You know, it'd be different if you were just streaming it live and you can maybe go a little bit lower quality on it and get it out immediately. But to put something that's going to have a lot of editing to it and then a lot of narrative build, like, that's all time and editing, which takes forever.
The professional camera supply company put a scary hold on my credit card when we got all of that equipment. Like, I mean, like, literally, like, my partner Bam, the director, he was like, this is what we need. We have to get, we need this equipment. And I was like, okay, here's my credit card. And then when they called me from the store and they were like, all right, we're about to freeze $20,000 on your card just in case. I was like, hiccup? Okay. Like, hopefully we don't knock a camera over, you know? Like, hopefully nothing bad happens because I cannot afford to pay that off. So there's definitely some risk involved, you know? We had to upgrade our insurance liability for the event. There's always, like, things you never think about, you know? But, you know, I mean, it was really worth doing it. And honestly, I need to give a shout out because there's 100%, there's no way that this event could have happened or even gotten, like, past the dream stage if it wasn't for the awesome sponsors that we were able to bring on. You know, Zebra Athletics, they make the best mats in the world as far as I'm concerned. They're the only mats we have in the gym. They're the only mats that, you know, they're the mats of 10th Planet headquarters. They're the mats of AKA. They're the mats of so many high-level training facilities. Zebra mats, you know. Mad Ritual is a new CBD company that's from the Northwest. They're really awesome people, run by two awesome women, and they're one of our other main sponsors. And then Dot Susara, of course. Dot Susara is known in the jiu-jitsu world, but we've never done something where Dot Susara was not on board in some way. I mean, they are the most down, the most supportive. And Chris, who runs that company, like, I know he's constantly, like, he's like me. He's just like, man, free bag. Like, he's so generous. He's one of the most generous giving people I know. And then lastly, Feed Me, Fight Me clothing gear. They're newer to the martial arts world, but you can look them up on Instagram also. And they're more into the powerlifting side of things, but they're bridging into martial arts. Feed Me, Fight Me. And I also love that name. Just feed me or fight me. Those are some great alternatives there.
Two basic human needs.
Yeah, exactly. And so so they make some really cool gear, and they actually they made these hats. They made all of our T-shirts, and they made all of our rash guards for the event. So you know, without those four companies and a lot of other support, like, I can't even, the cast and crew who donated their time, that came together with this, like, it's an incredible group of people that made this happen, and I do not deserve the credit by myself. A lot of people came together to make Shugyo a reality, just like a lot of people come together to make every other promotion a reality. You know, EBI or Kasai or any of those events. Like, there's so many people behind the scenes working besides just the guys you see on in the front. So I would be remiss if I didn't give all those people, you know, a really big shout out.
Well, Phil, I appreciate you walking us through this because, you know, it's so, I don't know what it is, but every time I see somebody new enter the landscape of being a promoter or putting on an event, we try to keep our ear to the ground and know what's going on. And I had heard rumblings there was something coming. And I was so happy when I saw your first promo advertisement because without a question, when I see somebody coming up new into the landscape, we try to give them a little push. But I really do love the secrecy of it. I think the amount of things you had to do to pull it off just so that most people go, what is that? Now, so many things had to go right to get you to having that element of surprise because whether we admit it or not, even if we like spoilers and we know them, it's so hard to surprise people these days. So it is very, very a testament to you and your team that put this together. I would like to say a couple things. One, guys, if you have not gone to their website, do so now. The Shugyo, theshugyo.com Invitational, or is it just the Shugyo?
Just theshugyo.com, and then from theshugyo.com, in our videos and everything, you can find our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel is still kind of small, so please go subscribe to the YouTube channel because that's the best place to get all the content.
You know what's fun, though? It's hard to explain this to people, and I have a different model than all of you guys, and I like to pride myself on having a page that is mostly interview-based, a little bit of comedy on the side, but mostly interview-based. But one of the detriments of that is I don't have matches, and matches sell the most. Like, matches are what get you the most views. So if people aren't watching it now, once they get onto the seeing the matches, they're gonna come. It's just the matter of, hey, Dix, could you do us a solid and go ahead and subscribe over there? And one thing I wanted to extend your way is we will be watching, we'll integrate it into the show in terms of some form of recap or something interesting, but I will extend, as I always do to people who win invitationals, an invitation to whoever ends up winning that. If not, maybe some of the people who, when I'm watching the episodes, I'll reach out to and interview them individually. I know a handful of them already and have already interviewed them, so it shouldn't be too hard, but I really love giving people their time, so we will be looking for ways to integrate them on the show. I won't reveal how yet, but maybe that's my surprise, so yeah. Take that. But we will be looking to push that.
I love that. And I think that, I think that as the episodes start to come out, so the format of the episodes is basically going to be each episode is going to have 2 matches in it. So you're going to see 2 matches in each episode, and each episode is going to flip bracket to bracket. So episode 1, you're going to be introduced to bracket 1. Episode 2, you'll be introduced to bracket 2. And then from there, we're going to alternate back and forth as the tournament goes on. And I guess we didn't have to do this, but we chose to do this. We're releasing the episodes and the matches. Everything is in chronological order. So the first match you see is the first match that happened, and so on. And so there's no, we're not gaming the system to try and, hide matches from you or try and, stage them at certain times that are out of chronology. We're just showing it to you like it really happened. And I think that, I think for you, Raph, especially in the interview content, when you see the post-fight interviews, and you get those post-fight interviews, and you see the characters, and you see the emotions, I think that will really, fuel and inspire future interviews and future content, because there's gonna be, there was only so much that we could ask them in that moment, right after the fight. But these fights are going to live forever. Everyone's going to get to see the matches. You're going to get to see all the matches. So, you might have your own insightful questions for someone like Keith, or for someone like Rafael Domingos, or someone like Jordan Holy, or someone like Josh Bacalao, or someone like our dark horse, Max Roshkoff, Max Roshkoff, are you familiar with him?
Yes, not only am I familiar with him, he's also an avid watcher of what's happening right now. He's definitely, at one point, I want to see if I'm quoting him right here, he definitely interjected in the stream and said, yeah. So, yeah, he's watching.
Yeah, we love Max. So Max was a really exciting guy to have in the tournament just because he's a real new stud on the scene, but he was the only purple belt in the tournament. We really wanted to make it brown belts and black belts. But I talked to Professor Drysdale on the phone himself, and he said, "Man, Phil, if we can get Max in this tournament, it would be awesome because we just can't find this guy a match. No one wants to fight this guy. He's tough. He's a beast in the room, and I think he's really good for this format." And I said, "Dude, you're Robert Drysdale. I believe you." So, so we got Max in, and yeah, no words, but super exciting, guys. So I think that as the episodes start coming out and you start seeing the development and you start kind of like getting a sense of how the tournament's going, it might be really interesting to get some of these guys on the podcast, and no spoilers, but kind of hear a little bit more about,
I will say, message received. It's very interesting when someone's just like, I can't wink anymore, but just know you might. And I'm like, no, I understand. And like I said, I don't know what it is yet because I'm going to have to see how the interviews go, because one thing I don't like doing is watching and doing something that's already been done. So whenever I see it, if I see you guys ask a certain style of questions or a certain sort of thing, it's not like I want to bring them back and be like, so you were crying? Let's talk more about that. It's like, well, what's a different experience? Now with some perspective, how does my interview change or do something different? And that's not to say that we don't bring them on or even do some sort of recap with somebody else who gets to watch the matches or stuff like that. So I have a lot of stuff in mind that I'm going to watch the episodes as everybody else. I know I'm going to be watching on the 12th, and I know I'm going to be watching when you guys release them and in those weekly installments, because it just sounds cool, and I'm very happy to see what it is. And so however it is we can help to keep the momentum going, we want to be a part of that. So again, cannot thank you enough, Phil, for your time here today. Everybody, first episode, August 12th. You are going to want to watch it. As we close out right now, we will be playing that commercial again. Phil, you're a good man. You're doing the Lord's work. Even if you don't believe in the Lord, I don't know. Should we call it the Rick and Morty Lord or science? I don't know.
The Lord of Submissions here.
The Lord of Submissions is 100% one of the best shows I've ever seen in Vegas. I want to make sure that we tell everybody, if you are not following us on Grappling Hour on all of our channels, do so right now, you assholes. Go on YouTube, go on Facebook, go on Instagram, go on Twitter, at Grappling Hour on all of those formats, because we update things on the regular. We are already in discussions to be doing an interview with, I believe, Rich from Kasai. I don't know exactly when that's happening, but we love the Kasai. We will be putting that together shortly. And there's a hell of a lot going on this month and next month. So I believe if you want to get some of that premium content, you guys want to go ahead and subscribe to us. And also, one more thing, we will have another installment of our ADCC interview series that is coming together this Thursday. I have interviewed everybody except for one who's dead to me, all of the trials winners between the East and the West Coast. We are replaying those interviews that I've done as the only outlet who has interviewed all of those individuals except for the one who's dead to me. You can catch those on Thursdays here at Grappling Hour. That's going to do it for us today. Go support our good friend Phil and his endeavor at the Shugyo Invitational. That is, again, theshugyo.com. It is 13 matches, 13 submissions. You aren't going to find that many other places. And I think that's going to do it for us today, you guys. Thank you so much for your time. It's been a great day for grappling. We'll see you on the mats.
Thank you.
Who is dead to me? Well, go figure it out. That's your job. I'm not going to say who it is. That's rude. Goodbye, everybody.